Initiating moisture.
I finally fucking finished Death Stranding, and now I'm left confused, and yet enlightened. I feel as though Kojima's brilliance has allowed me to achieve nirvana. I feel like I now have a higher appreciation for the finer things in art. I feel as if my farts smell better to my nostrils now. Because this game transcends anything you could possibly envision for a video game. This was one of the most tedious chores I've ever taken on in all 25 years of my time as an elite top-tier gamer. Let me get the best things out of the way: the story, the setting, the aesthetic, the writing. Though everything that's not gameplay is good. I'll expand on that in a minute, but let me just vent about the gameplay. Credits just rolled, and I need to tell you how fucking awful this gameplay is. Now, I already know saying that has triggered a fucking Winter Soldier response in some commenters that have their pinky out and finger on the trigger ready for a Reddit comment because I didn't appreciate the high quality art. My American brain couldn't comprehend things that weren't bang bang shooty shooty, as Kojima says. Let me justify this position. No matter how you spin this gameplay, it is boring. At no point can this gameplay even be misconstrued as fun. It becomes tolerable at a certain point, but at its core the gameplay is deliver packages from point A to point B, and it's typically the slowest and longest journey possible. I had deliveries that extended 4,100 kilometers, and I had to approach some of that shit on foot due to batteries running out, lack of generators, or just the mountain being too high and not having enough supplies for it, because you couldn't prepare for a fucking journey that long. You'd have to take breaks, break it up. It's boring. It becomes tolerable with the shared universe where you can use other players' bridges and roads which help you get from point A to point B. That's fine. But it's never fun. It's never enjoyable. It's always just a means to an end to get to great cutscenes and great writing and characters. Never do you revel in the gameplay and just take time to just appreciate the walking, the being an Amazon delivery man, being a fucking post-apocalyptic postman with a fetus in a pickle jar. It's never enjoyable. It's so slow. It's boring. Now, I streamed this entire game at twitch.tv/moistcritical. You can see that I did everything possible to make the game more exciting in its gameplay, to make it faster, more fun. I spent 4 fucking hours setting up an elaborate network of zip lines, which is the fastest form of travel, from every major location in the game, or so I thought. From the entire middle of the game, I spent setting up zip lines to make the travel between them faster, because this game is all about backtracking and delivering packages of fucking bricks from person to person. Excuse me, hologram to hologram. You deliver sperm and eggs. You deliver some trivial shit. You deliver pizza, porn magazines. Yeah, sometimes it's goofy, but oftentimes, not oftentimes, every time it's never fun. The goofiness is never enough to make the boring tedium fun. It's so insufferably, frustratingly boring, and there's so many anti-fun mechanics in this game for no reason. For example, the recycling mechanic could have been totally just done away with. Half of the mechanics in here and features seem so arbitrary and just there to slap the player's face with Kojima's penis and make it take longer for no reason. It just seems like it's there to be punishing for the sake of punishment. To give you an example, if you want to build a road, it takes a substantial amount of materials, metals for example. In order to get those metals there, you have to individually bring those briefcases and packages full of metal to it. You can use cars to help, but it's going to take multiple trips. It is beyond agonizing. You feel every yard traveled with those packages going to one of the auto pavers for a road, and then you probably don't even use the road because you progress past it, but then you'll get 20,000 likes from other players that have used your road and benefited from your hard work, the fucking sweat of your brow, the blood, sweat, tears, and cum you poured into getting that road built for them to go viral on the Death Stranding social network. It's just not fun at any point. It's more fun to spit on your window and watch it slowly fall to the bottom. There's more fun to be had when you sneeze into a tissue. There's more action when you're shaking a protein shake or mixing something in a blender. Not saying this game really needs action. I'm totally fine if there was no action at all, but there is, and it's bad, by the way. When there is shooting shit, it's not fun. It's straight out of 2006 mechanics. But it doesn't need action is what I'm saying. But there's more engaging gameplay in a visual novel than here. This gameplay is just there to punish you and be tedious for the sake of tedious. And I guess what everyone defends there is that it's relaxing or calming, or you just don't get it. It fits the world and the tone of the world. Who gives a fuck if it fits the tone of the world if it's not fun? And it's definitely not relaxing, because the vehicle driving mechanics betray you oftentimes. Shit has a mind of its own. If you take one of the bikes off-road, for example, that shit controls like a grocery bag being picked up by strong wind. It is impossible to go where you want to go half the time when you're out of the map, and there's so many fucking rocks. There's a million rocks. This is a technical marvel in the amount of little rocks that it throws in your way that your fucking vehicles will pinball off of if you make the mistake of taking the road less traveled. It is unbelievably frustrating. I could vent for hours about how not fun it is, and it wants to be not fun. And yes, I can see why people could find it relaxing if they want something to fall asleep to. This game would definitely help with your insomnia, but it's still, no matter how you spin it, never, ever fun. And it's by design. Now, this being a video game, that's a huge problem. It's a fucking game, not a movie, but it should have been. This would be a masterpiece if there wasn't a game attached to it. This is a great movie that unfortunately has a shit game on top of it. Everything else that's not gameplay is superb, spectacular. I love almost every character in here. Yes, there's cheesy dialogue, but when there's this many lines of dialogue, obviously there's going to be some stinkers. But a lot of them happen with Fragile. Fragile's lines often get really comical. She has a line where she goes, "I may be fragile, but I'm not fragile." And then she says verbatim, "Everything you've heard about me is true, except for the lies." So yeah, there's some like, I'm 14 and this is deep kind of shit. But, you expect that from a game that has this much in it. So that's not a complaint. I love the characters and I love the writing. It has such a fascinating story. It has so many nuanced details to the characters and what goes on. And there's certain things you can do when you're in your private room. There's a lot of options available to you. There's just so much in it. Aside from gameplay, that is so great. But unfortunately, that fucking gameplay is still there. Like a pimple on the face of a supermodel. Like 1,000 pimples on the face of the world's best looking supermodel. Graphically, this game is absolutely awe-inspiringly gorgeous. The settings you visit, the certain areas you go to, some of the, without spoiling anything, some of the certain enemies you encounter, some of the BTs, pretty much everything in this game is gorgeous and its design is flawless. The villain, Higgs, he looks great. It's just so beautiful to look at, an absolute marvel. But then there's that gameplay. There's that gameplay that this 20 minutes of great cutscenes, this 20 minutes of interacting with the characters is about to be fucking ruined when I have to go make this delivery because some old bitch over in the middle of nowhere wanted to have this plastic fork delivered to her, and I'm the only man for the job. And also, the music in this game bangs. The soundtrack is so great. Every time a song comes on, it is a joy to listen to. Absolute pleasure. But then there's the gameplay. You hear that song, but you're still playing the game, so now you're conflicted. Shit, I got shit gameplay, but great music. Fuck! If only the gameplay wasn't here, I'd rather just listen to the jukebox. I can't stress enough how miserable the gameplay is. I'm not exaggerating. I was genuinely miserable whenever the gameplay would drag on. I had a mission towards the end of the game in a snowy mountaintop. The entire snowy mountaintop area can suck the dirtiest part of my butthole, by the way. Where the mission was visit one area, go 1,000 kilometers to the left. After going 1,000 kilometers to the left to visit one mountaineer, I had to go 3,000 kilometers to the right to visit a doctor. After visiting that doctor 3,000 kilometers on the right, I had to go 3,000 kilometers all the way back to the mountaineer. After going back to the mountaineer, I had to go back to the main hub that I started it in, and then that was the quest line complete. It wasn't interesting, that was not well written, that whole side quest was not good, and it was the most tedious thing in the world because the mountains couldn't be traversed very efficiently. There were zip lines placed but in bad locations and also couldn't be used overly great throughout that area. I could go on and on, I really could. The gameplay is unlike anything I've ever played before in a bad way. There's a reason games don't make gameplay like this, because it doesn't lead itself to being fun for the player. It just reaches a point where you're able to tolerate it and put up with it for the greater good of finishing the plot that Kojima has made here, and it is absolutely fantastic as a movie. And plugging this into the moist meter, I'm giving Death Stranding a 60%. There's so much to love about Death Stranding, none of it involving its core gameplay loop. If that was just improved, changed, or just completely gotten rid of, This could have truly been a fucking masterpiece. And I have no doubt once Kojima does start making movies, they're going to be absolutely wonderful. But this game, I can't recommend it. What I would recommend is watching Death Stranding. Watch a full playthrough without the gameplay, perhaps, or the sped up gameplay, but just watching the cutscenes, watching the characters, and some of the side quests, I think would be much better than actually picking up the controller and playing this for 60 hours. That's it. See ya.